name is Brent Woods. I'm the area manager for Dumas, and I think our main reason for our success was the culture we created at the site. You can have all the policies and procedures, but when it comes down to it, it comes down to the men, and it was the buy-in from the men. Unfortunately, we had a couple of serious incidences that without the buy-in and the culture change from the men at the face, we couldn't be successful. So it was those serious incidences and the guys that took that back to their fellow crew members and workers and stated that, you know, we have to change, and I don't want to get hurt again, and I don't want anybody else on my crew to get hurt. So it was that culture and that change.
Yeah, I'm Ron Price. I'm the project superintendent for Dumas here at Hoyle Pond, and I want to tell you a little story. In 2011, Dumas saw a reduction in total medical injury frequencies of about 2.3 points. At Hoyle Pond, though, the numbers were the opposite. Total injuries doubled. How could this happen? We had all the right programs in place. We had used all the current buzzwords. We had the support of our management team and the support of the client. The workers seemed to be engaged with the safety initiatives, and accidents continued to happen. Why? Above the collar, everyone seemed on board. Everyone talked the talk. Everyone. The culture on surface had changed. The old management style or mentality of on the ball or on the bus was gone. We were really good at holding safety meetings. Problems became issues. Safety first was on everyone's lips, and yet below the collar, the culture remained the same. How could we change the culture in the underground? It was ingrained by centuries of use. The experienced men still took shortcuts and thumbed their noses at safety, the procedures and the standards, and these were the men that were training our newcomers. We were promoting the culture. In 2012, the Dumas Cardinal Rule was introduced. It said that no Dumas employee was allowed to assign or do unsafe work. That was a pretty broad statement that came with no disciplinary policy. How are we to hold people accountable? This was left up to the site management to interpret and implement, and everyone had a different idea what it really meant. After all, the numbers at the end of the day had to be there, no matter what anyone said. It seemed to be a catch-22. After all, how can we enforce procedures and still get footage? It seemed like a huge task. How do I convince a guy like Jake that what he's doing is wrong? Jake has never been seriously injured. He always gets his blast and was admired by his co-workers. But one day, Jack's partner was seriously injured. It seemed that Jake wasn't getting along with his green partner and decided that the kid would have to learn on his own. Jack wasn't watching the kid this day, and he got clobbered by a piece of loose. We missed the round anyway, due to the investigation that followed, and no gain, lots of pain. Jack was held accountable for the incident, and he learned something. Now Jack brags about how well he takes care of his co-workers, and he does. And then there was Rick. Rick was a talented up-and-comer, but he had been taught by the old-timers and was conditioned to accept a certain amount of risk. He had an elitist attitude and figured that nothing was ever going to happen to him. But one day something did. Eric was helping a crew move a scissor lift back from the face to do a little rehab. There were 4 men there, about 80 years of experience between them all, and they were just walking down the drift, keeping an eye on the hoses as the scissor lift back up from the face. Eric was going to watch the 1-inch water hose on his side of the lift. He didn't notice the hose got caught under the tire, and he rolled over it until it snapped. The spuds in the nipple at the end of the hose ripped apart and snapped back and struck Eric in the jaw. It shattered it. He was still spitting out teeth when they brought him to surface. Another long investigation, another lost round, another worker sent to the hospital. His injuries were very serious. It was 8 months before Eric returned to the workplace. His young family is still not recovered. Why are people not looking out for one another? And why are hazards not being recognized, and why are people still taking risks? Why? The answer was all too obvious, because we let them. We turned a blind eye to shortcuts because at the end of the day we wanted our rounds. In 2012, Dumas Hoyle started to change. The culture had been infiltrated, and we persisted. When unsafe practices were observed, work was stopped, and some men had to be sent home. But in a quick hurry, the workforce realized that lack of compliance would not be tolerated here. The supervisors began to believe that what management was telling them was actually expected. We only wanted safe development or none at all. People were held accountable. There were no exceptions. The miners still wanted their rounds, and their pride was not jeopardized. But they came to realize that if they weren't doing it right, they weren't doing it at all. Incident frequency slowed down. We went 160 days 000, another 140 days, and incident severity dropped off. And you know what? The rounds kept coming. Miners are a proud bunch, and they want to be successful. We changed the meaning of success. For the first 6 months of 2013, we had a workforce of around 100 men. When the gold price dropped in June, we had over 6 months of 000, a record 180 days plus and no injury. The cutbacks to adjust to the gold price occurred in June and July, and we dropped down to 50 men, and we kept our best men. The smaller crew certainly helped to reduce incidents, but there was a change in them that was quite noticeable. These were the experienced men who are the hardest to influence. A short time ago, but they were different. They had started to take an interest in their safety record and their own personal safety, and it had become a matter of pride to them, and the work they did showed their pride. I started telling you about Rick, who had a serious injury. When Rick came back to the workforce, he was very different. He had watched his family deal with his injury. His 9-year-old daughter worries every day that her daddy might get hurt again, and she tells him every day to work safe. Eric takes that very seriously, and he now spreads that and shares that concern with his co-workers. Gold core philosophy is safe enough for our families, and it is a philosophy that has not been adopted without a lot of heartbreak being endured. I don't think anyone in the mining industry has not been affected by a tragedy that has occurred to a family member, a friend, or an acquaintance. We all know someone who's been hurt in the mine. But I believe that now we think that can change. But we have to insist that it changes, and we have to be effective at that. We have to hold ourselves and everyone else we work with accountable. Oh, by the way, I have been told that the Dumas Hoyle Pond team for 2013 had the highest meters per man shift of any gold core development crew in North America. So that's 1 year 000 and record development. That's not bad. Now it's your turn. Good luck.
My personal commitment to safety would have to be to make sure that everybody, including myself, leaves the underground and goes home safely to their family. I was first on scene with a fatality here. I've been through the whole ordeal with the operator from the scoop. It was a gentleman that got basically hit by a scoop and ran over by a 6-yard scoop. It opened my eyes to a lot of things. I'd have to say that it was probably the biggest thing in my life that I've seen. I don't want to see that again. And that's my goal, is to make sure that nobody else sees that. There's no reason for it.
Well, we achieved 1 year with no injuries, following procedures. We shouldn't have no injuries at all.
That was a long, tedious process for the men to buy into the change, a culture that safety was #1 And no job was done unless it was done safely. When you see people doing things today, the possibility, when you see what they're doing, and then you can right away, you can look forward and say the possibility of this happening, you have to stop. You know, you have to reevaluate what you're doing in order to make sure that you're safe. And that's our #1 goal here. Everyone's got to go home safe.
I work safe every day to go home to my family, which is why I'm here. And they are #1, so that is basically my priority.
It'd be the IRS, internal responsibility system. You got to look out for yourself, #1, and your partner, #2. And then also Dumas cardinal rule also there. All employees are prohibited from performing unsafe work or assigning unsafe work. That's another big one also. Make sure you go home to your families. That's what's most important. We don't work in a pillow factory. We work in a rock factory, so we're the softest thing down there. Everybody's paying more attention. We got the right guys doing it. Now we just got the right guys for a job, and we're paying attention to what we're doing. So always think before you act, and just take the right choices.
And they know how to take care of their men. And the communication throughout the workforce is an awesome thing when it comes to Dumas.
The supervision here is really good. Communication as well. Everybody works as a team. There's no pressure to do anything unsafe. The goal is to come home every shift.
Down there, it's about making choices. I mean, you got to make the right choices. If you know, it's about working together down there. We're down there as a team.
Experienced men. Most of the guys that we work with are pretty experienced. They know what they're doing. Kind of work together as a team. Safety is always first. A piece of loose came off the back and hit me on the head, on the shoulder, and on the back. You know, you just think about what could have I done to prevent that in the future.
I think it's a big team effort. The miners have a different attitude than 10 years ago, say the IRS, internal responsibility system, is starting to take effect. It's about stopping and correcting, and supervision has really changed too over the years. They're more committed to it, committed to safety. It's not all about footage. It's about getting the footage, doing it properly, and doing it safely. It's a culture. It's a way of thinking.
Stopping, taking a look before we act and see what the risks are before we start a job.
Because we got really qualified people that work for us, and our safety department is one of the top notch, and we care about each other. We look out after each other. I know a lot of people that have been hurt on the job.
I believe with the education that they provide us with, the understanding of our environment and promotion of safe work areas, and we take that and we try to do our best every day, and it's working. I was injured on a job. I had my jaw broken. And it's not funny. It hurts for a very long time, and it made me look at it in a different way. There's only one way to do things, and it's the right way. I think that prevents injuries.
It was more than likely because of Dumas's commitment to safety. The safety measures that the supervision implements are safety huddles. They're really, really strong on safety and making sure that everything is good and proper in the workplace.
It's a frame of mind to me. chemistry plays a big part. The guys who work together here, no inexperienced men, all experienced men. Everybody knows what they need to do. Safety becomes a frame of mind. You know, people speak about safety as a culture, and I think that we do have that here. There's no shortcut that needs to be taken to achieve that. I got a commitment to these, you know, to the 8 men that I work with underground to ensure that they go home safely, you know, and they have a commitment to me as well, you know, that they want to come to surface without injuring themselves. I don't think luck has a lot to do with it, you know, maybe under circumstances, you know, a little bit, but generally speaking, I think with diligent work practices, where we're doing things properly, you know, we can have success and continued success.
Hello, I'm Dave Bernier, General Manager for Dumas Contracting's Ontario and Western Canadian operations. I want to take the time to congratulate our team at the Hoyle Pond mine for the significant milestone of 1 year with zero harm. 000, zero harm, call it what you may, it simply means our people made the right choices and displayed the correct behaviors to make sure they returned home safe and healthy at the end of each shift. I also want to take the time to thank Goldcorp for their continuous support throughout the 365 plus days. Sometimes as contractors, maybe you don't feel quite as home as you do if you were an owner, but in this case it's simply not true, and we'd like to thank Goldcorp for their support along the way. On the reporting, we looked at the statistics, and over the year we've had 36 events that have been reported. That may be near hits, it could be equipment damage, it can be reports of potentially hazardous conditions. Our reporting has actually gone up. With regards to the scope of work, we are doing real development work in the deepest part of the mine. And if you want to put it into context, we've done close to 4 kilometers of development during that time, whether that's ramp or lateral. 60,000 rebar have been put in, plus or minus 1 or 2 of course. 80,000 buckets of rock, 600 bags of shotcrete. No matter how you look at it, we're approaching 200,000 man hours, and the significance of the event cannot be denied. So when you look at the milestone in this context, it really gives you an appreciation for what the people have done there, and again I want to thank them. And part of the reason for making this presentation and the video was to try and quantify what we've done there and try and take that to other projects. So to close, on behalf of Dumas and Goldcorp and the families of those who work at Dumas Hoyle Pond, we'd like to thank you again for the significant milestone of 1 year 000 and zero harm, and I wish you continued success.